The sun had already slipped behind the skyline, giving the city that punch-drunk neon glow as I scrolled through my phone on the crumbling steps outside my parents' brownstone. Notifications flashed like alarm bells, DM requests, my name tagged alongside screenshots of some warped meme. A video looped again and again, me, in front of an oversized keyboard, eyes squeezed shut, mouth tangled in concentration, pressing sampler pads and twisting knobs. Audio spliced in from somewhere else, a donkey braying, then text, tell Joey he's not Beethoven, sound designer for life. The comments stung more than the wind carving through my thin hoodie. Tommy from high school, cringe bro, just get a real job. Even Denise, my cousin, hearted a response below. I wanted to throw my phone into the street, but I only locked it and pressed it to my chest. My mother's voice rose from the kitchen window. I went inside. My stomach twisted in protest, but I forced myself to sit at the table beneath the same plastic grape cluster that had hung for 2 decades. My father's eyes darted over a newspaper he'd mostly given up pretending to read these days, and my younger brother Vin smirked. So, Joey, you famous now? Saw you on TikTok today, Vin said, swirling his spoon in marinara like it was a trope. I forked pasta, trying to make myself invisible. Nobody in their right mind gets paid to make noise, my father muttered, not looking up. My mother's hand hovered at my shoulder, then fell away. He'll find a good job, she said to no one, her voice low. Eventually. Their words slid over years of similar ones, all that explaining what a sound designer does, how films and games and ads need us. But nobody in my family knew anyone who made their living that way. Around here, if you weren't fixing pipes, policing, selling insurance, or teaching, your work didn't count. What I did seemed abstract, indulgent even. After dinner, I sat in the silence of my old bedroom, now crowded by boxes of things my parents would never throw away. My battered field recorder blinked on my desk. My world, that little glowing box. I closed my eyes and remembered the first sounds that infected me. A train rumbling over rails, echoing through my chest as a boy. The distant roar of the city at night, folding into a lullaby. Even a busted air conditioner purring like a secret. I tried to explain it. How I hear stories where people hear white noise. And how I wanted to shape those stories for a living, not just in the cracks between jobs. But after tonight, I felt skinned alive. I scrolled through comments again, each jab sharper because it held my friends, my cousins, their honest bewilderment. At some point, exhaustion took me. I woke in the quiet panic before dawn, my heart racing, another meme notification lighting up the room. Joey keeps it noisy, trending in a small corner of social media. I spent the next days moving through the neighborhood like a ghost. I ducked under my hoodie on the streets, bracing myself every time someone called my name. A few times, an uncle or a classmate stopped me. So, you still doing your little sound stuff? They always said it with a half smile. Like the kid who used to eat glue, but inside something burned. I started avoiding family dinners, making up gigs I didn't have. I sent out emails for internships and got nothing. I thought about quitting, but every time I passed a subway busker or a train groaning underground, I heard a symphony of possibility that wouldn't let me give up. So I worked. Nobody in my neighborhood knew or cared, but I worked. I spent my last $100 on a pair of battered studio headphones. I took freelance sound jobs, wrestling terrible dialogue for cheap indie films, patching together footsteps for video game mods, slicing and assembling radio ad sound beds. I did it from the tiny back room I rented in Brooklyn, the window pressed up against a deafening airshaft. Days blurred into restless nights. The only light was my growing folder of completed projects and the incremental, unspectacular jobs that paid just enough to avoid moving home again. One muggy May evening, I scored my first real break, a mail from a post-production house downtown, inviting me to try out for their summer apprentice gig. My stomach twisted with nerves. I'd have to prove myself, work alongside pros, not screw up the chance. The first day, the studio overwhelmed me, a maze of glass booths, of cold brew and solder, real film editors in flip-flops, producers barking into Bluetooth headsets. But there was respect here for invisible work. I watched how they shaped the silence after a whispered line, how they finessed footsteps across empty rooms, or layered the rising storm beneath a character's breakdown. I was the bottom rung fetching coffee, cataloging sound libraries, being seen but not heard. But late at night, with everyone gone, I'd sneak extra hours on the Pro Tools rigs, layering soundscapes nobody had asked for. I pulled crumbling recordings of jackhammers from my neighborhood, the creak of the old G train, and folded them into soft music tracks until the city melted into something new. The senior sound supervisor, Lewis, caught me one night. He stood silent by the door until I looked up, shame already filling me. He listened. Then he smiled, rare and tired. "That's pretty damn good, Joey. You want an associate's badge? Show up tomorrow. Don't screw up." I didn't screw up. Every day after that, I lived double lives. In the studio, I threw myself into every challenge: ADR, Foley, music editing. I stayed until the last subway rattled the rails. At home, I dodged calls from the family, answering when I couldn't avoid it, lying about what I did. They never asked why I wouldn't come back for Sunday dinner. A year passed in a blink. I finished one small film, then another. My name in the credits. Never first, always buried, but there. Then came the call, a major production. Something that would stream to millions wanted me to build their city soundscape. They'd heard my urban collages, said they wanted New York to be a character. I took the train home that night and stared out the window, feeling the weight of it pressing into my chest. It wasn't fame, but it was the first real mark of legitimacy. We worked like zealots for months, nights blurred into days. I'd stand on street corners at midnight, recording the wash of distant sirens, the syncopated footsteps of night shift workers, the almost musical clatter of delivery trucks. Each sound I shaped with care, knowing I was painting with the raw material of my own city. The premiere was small, just cast, crew, industry types in a bland room on the Lower East Side. I sat in the back, breathless, when the first rush of city noise filled the speakers, and someone in the row ahead leaned forward as if to inhabit the sound. I shivered. After, my supervisor clapped me on the back. "You did it, Joey. Really did it. My first credit as lead sound designer." It wasn't glamorous, no red carpets, but the world I conjured from noise and memory lived beautifully on screen. Within weeks, the film went viral online, not for the plot or the acting, but for how it made people feel inside the city. Twitter threads speculated on how they'd captured New York's soul in headphones. One called out my name and suddenly my phone pulsed with DMs and work offers. I moved to a better apartment, started sleeping more, made enough to take my parents out to dinner, though I still avoided talking about work. One day, a local news piece surfaced. Brooklyn native wins award for urban sound design. My father sent it in the family WhatsApp group, no message attached. But beneath, Denise commented, "Hey, isn't this Joey?" For the first time in years, I replied, "Yeah, that's me." A week later, the film's director invited me back to the neighborhood for a small event. "We're screening it in the old church gym for the community," he explained. "Want to say a few words after?" My heart pounded. I hadn't set foot in that gym since I was a teenager, since the time I tried explaining what a sound designer does to a room full of smirking classmates. But something in me said now or never. On the evening of the screening, I walked down the blocks I'd once shrunk from. It was spring again, the air alive with grill smoke and mumbled music from windows. People nodded as I passed, some with that flicker of distant recognition. My parents waited on the steps, slightly overdressed, Mom's hair lacquered into an old party style. Inside, the gym felt unchanged, gaudy blue mats, cracked windows, time-stained banners. Seats filled with faces from every part of my old life. My cousins, Tawny from high school, Denise and her fiancé. Even my music teacher, Mr. Romano, now grayer but still sharp-eyed. The screen flickered on. I sank into my seat, pulse in my throat as the room went dark. The opening credits unfurled. The city bloomed up, not just as a backdrop, but alive. Subway bells pealing, old pipes moaning, dogs barking in distant alleys. People leaned in unconsciously. Someone gasped as a chorus of city noise built and spilled over the first scene. There was a reverence in the room, a sudden collective memory of home. When the credits rolled, my name shined big and bright. Sound design by Joseph DiMartino. A hush fell. The director introduced me, and my voice trembled as I spoke. This city taught me everything about music and storytelling. All the little noises, the racket you used to yell at, the ones you never noticed. They make up the heartbeat of our home. I wanted to show what it feels like to belong somewhere. Even if you never quite fit, people quieted. Even Tommy looked away for a second, mouth a thin line. My father stood up, clearing his throat. He drove us crazy with his microphones, but he made something real. His hand landed awkwardly on my shoulder, and I saw in his eyes the first glimmer of pride that matched the old doubt. Afterward, a cluster formed. Cousins, friends, even skeptics pressing forward. "I heard Mom's block in that opening scene," Denise whispered, mouth puckered